What's going on? Another week of college football, halfway through the season. Yeah, halfway. Yeah, I think we're about halfway. Welcome to the SHIPIT Nation College Football Show, everybody. My name's Bill. Put $1 in front of it, and you'll find me on Discord and Twitter. I'm glad you're here, and we're ready for another week of college football. But first, we got to talk about SHIPIT Nation. We're pushing for 10,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. I mean, Ron is on his way there, obviously on a rocket ship, on the SHIPIT rocket ship, headed for the SHIPIT Nation, and you can be too. Just check underneath this video to see if you're subscribed. If it says subscribed, then you're good. If it says subscribe without the D, then just go ahead and click it. We're in the mid 8,000s right now, pushing for 10K, and we have some special things planned for, I believe, something, maybe a little bit of a halfway point at 9K, and then again at 10,000. So we're ready to have you. We're ready to have you join the nation. As far as college football goes this week, there are always solid contests on DraftKings. We've talked about it enough. We don't necessarily need to go through it other than this one. This is the best contest on DraftKings, RAKE free touchdown hoedown listener league for SHIPIT Nation. The link is going to be below this video in the description, right below that subscribe button I was talking about earlier. Maybe it's above the subscribe button. I should probably look at that more. But go ahead, jump right in. $5 5 max, real fat payout structure, and 500 to first up top, half a first to second, and 10% to 10th. So, one of the better payout structures, plus it's RAKE free. It's exactly what we want for DFS. And again, the faster we fill it, the faster we can grow it, and we can get those bigger prizes out there with that good payout structure too. And congratulations to last week's winner, Hard Work 24/7, one of our friends at Run Pure Sports. And you can see there's still some SHIPIT flags in the top 5 there. Looks like I Am Robbins at 4th and in 6th. Can't kind of see him down there. But yeah, and hey, look out though. I finally cashed. I'm coming for you guys. But let's just jump right into this week. We got another really a lot of good college football this week. A lot of good games, a lot of close games, and even not for DFS, like a lot of good real life football games out there on the slate this Saturday. So we'll get started with Auburn at Missouri. A 4-point spread, so a close game right off the bat. A couple of teams that, and in all honesty, haven't been great necessarily, at least consistently for DFS. Jarquez Hunter thought was going to be great this year. And he's shown some flashes. Like the one thing that intrigues me about Hunter is that he had 13 carries for 91 yards and a touchdown against Georgia. So at 5,100, I definitely don't mind him here. Keandre Lambert-Smith, I'd crapped on him so much, but he's his favorite target. He's Thorne's favorite target this year. So he's still at a good price that you could look at him in this spot. Thorne is still at a good price. You could look at him in this spot, especially if you're game stacking. It's a close enough game. This one, it could shoot out very easily. And then Cam Coleman, the stud freshman, actually finally started getting a few more snaps, it seemed like last game. So, at 3,700 MME, 150 lineups, I don't mind taking a shot at something like that if you're game stacking this. And then on the Missouri side, Brady Cook, mostly less than impressive this year, but he still has the potential to get there. The thing with Missouri is that they're not coming off a bye week, but they're coming off a game at Mizzou or at UMass. So, basically a bye. And some of those guys did go on bye, like Nate Noel, who, he was a late scratch, but, it was UMass. So I think if it was a big opponent, he probably would have played. That's just my initial thought when I heard that. Luther Burden exited the game with injury. So he got hit hard. You might see them on the injury report, but Drink said they're most likely going to go. So Missouri should be full steam ahead, and they're still probably a little bit wounded from getting embarrassed by Texas A&M. And they could very easily take it out at home against Auburn. After seeing what Texas A&M did to Missouri, the defense isn't maybe as scary as it seems. So this game could be a little bit sneaky. I don't mind a game stack. Everybody seems pretty appropriately priced though. Lambert Smith and Hunter may be a little underpriced, but again, they haven't had the consistency this year, but the potential is always there. The next game, the Clemson might just be a wagon. I'm going to issue an apology to Cade Klubnik. I still don't even know if I'm saying his name right, but I don't know him, so it doesn't really matter. Sorry, Cade, if you're watching. But he's been good, and he's putting up numbers. And yes, Clemson is up by 30 points and still throwing the ball. But you know what? For DFS, we use that. If he's 9,600, but if he's going to be throwing well into the late third quarter, even in a blowout, gotta love it. Virginia side, Anthony Calandria last week had a, maybe his best rushing game of the season, but it was against Louisville, who we'll talk about here in a minute. But at 6,900, nice. He should, get some looks even in a game script like this. I don't know if Virginia's going to throw a whole lot more, even if they're down. But if they do, it's going to be to Malachi Fields. Now, Trell Harris has already been ruled out. Chris Tyree is expected back, so that could maybe jumpstart a little bit. I don't know if Chris Tyree is the jumpstart type. But really what that does is, Cam Courtney had been getting a lot more looks in the slot. Tyree coming back will hurt him a little bit in all likelihood. Andre Green had been starting for Trell Harris, so we'll likely still see him unless they shuffle where these receivers play. That's obviously something we're probably not going to know ahead of time. Just something we need to be aware of if you are looking at this team. Kobe Pace in a revenge spot. Clemson is where he started his career. And Micah Ford for Stanford did have over 100 yards rushing against Clemson. So it's not impossible that Pace has a payoff game at 4,400. Same with Calandria at 6,900. That same game, Ashton Daniels ran for 87 yards. So the potential's there. Clemson, we know all we need to know as far as, where the ball's going to go in all likelihood. It's Cade Klubnik. It's Maffa. Maffa's priced up, though. It's a little bit harder to play him at this price, but if he keeps crushing, you got to give him a look. Antonio Williams had been kind of the clear favorite target until last week. Jake Brenningstool with his big game. He, 10 targets, 7 catches, 104 yards, and a touchdown. We'd be talking about him this week if he hadn't been overshadowed by Tyler Warren last week. But the big question mark for Clemson is Brian Wesco going to play? We found out late Saturday morning last week that he wasn't going to play. He didn't make the trip with the team. If he doesn't go, you could look at a cheap guy like TJ Moore again. If he gets the start, especially. Cole Turner's a guy that could be involved too. He plays kind of the same position. And Troy Stelato's just, he's a dude that's there. He's going to get looks regardless of who's in or out. But Williams and Brenningstool are the two guys, and then Maffa and obviously Klubnik. Moving on, Miami at Louisville, a 5-point spread and very high implied team totals, which for DFS means we're probably going to be taking a look at this game. But oh boy, that price tag on Cam Ward. The thing is, I mentioned Calandria in Louisville talking about the last game. It's because he kept up the 50-plus yard streak for a rushing quarterback against Louisville. Just look at the box scores. Every quarterback that faces Louisville, book him for 50-plus yards and possibly a touchdown. Cam Ward is mobile enough to make that happen. At 10-8, you think that's a really high price that you think it's tough to pay. His floor is like 32 this year. Like his floor is 3x of that price. So yes, it's tough. Yes, it's going to handcuff a lot of your lineup, but if you can make it work, he's definitely somebody, the raw points upside is there, even at 10-8. So I don't mind that. This running game, it's, shuffle. I mean, Damian Martinez, he's getting the most looks at, and he has a little bit of upside, 5,800. It's just a weird price range for a running back by committee. And the pricing on these wide receivers makes it a little bit tough too. Restrepo at 82. Yes, he's the number one option, but it's tough to pay 8,200 for a wide receiver, especially when you look right across the screen and see 7,300 on Ja'Cory Brooks. I'd be maybe more interested in a guy like Isaiah Horton or Sam Brown, especially like Sam Brown and a guy like Elijah Arroyo, the tight end, with the pricing to be able to pair those guys with Cam Ward. So if you try to pair Cam Ward with Xavier Restrepo, it's basically going to punt at least 3 to 4 other guys in your lineup just with how tight that makes it. So that's where that Sam Brown, Elijah Arroyo range comes in. Makes it a lot easier to do. And then on the other side, Louisville, Miami has shown some vulnerability. They should have lost to Virginia Tech. You argue they should have lost to Cal. They squeaked by, and good teams squeak by in those games with, help from the refs, depending on how you feel about it. But Louisville can put up points too, and they're at home. And Miami has to, travel. Tyler Shuck priced up a little bit again. Solid play. But not something that screams yes, not something that screams fade. So that's kind of where I'm at. Isaac Brown, he's getting workhorse carries. He's not priced up enough yet. 5,600 is not something I'm afraid to click. I mean, even Donald Chaney at 32, MME, maybe a shot of 1 or 2. Don't love it, but he's cheap. And then the wide receiver core is Ja'Cory Brooks, still the top dog. Colin Lacey he hasn't gotten super involved like we wanted him to ever since he came back. But 4,200 with that ceiling, he's still capturing my eye a little bit. I'm not going to lie, but this is a very stackable game. A 60 point game total, close spread. It's exactly what we want to see when we're looking at DFS. It's just the pricing that's going to make it a very, very interesting stack. And actually, I mean, if it's going to make it a little bit lower owned stack, that's, I mean, perfect for me. Moving on to a much lower game total, but one that honestly I could see getting a little sneaky. I'll tell you why in a minute. Dylan Raiola and 4,700. Come on, he's been mediocre at best. Nebraska's been winning games. It hasn't necessarily been because of Raiola, but at 4,700, a team that's projected to score 21 points, what does he need to get there? He needs to have a Quinn Ewers game to get there, and it's fine. So I don't mind that at all. I'm not really touching this running back room. It's just such a shuffle. Like Dowdle was supposed to be the top guy, but there's too much going on there for me to love it. And then in the wide receiver room, the one nugget that I do have for you that I heard on another podcast is just talking about how much size Nebraska's wide receivers are going to have on Indiana's defensive backs. So that makes me like a guy like Jamal Banks at 3,900, even Nair at 4,600. Like these guys do have some potential to get points. And that's what makes me love Raiola even more. Just because he's cheap. You got to like a cheap quarterback. You don't get a sub 5K quarterback very often. And we have two. And Raiola is my preferred of the two. Now, on the Indiana side, just a wagon, undefeated, putting up points left and right. Like it's been a phenomenal run for them, but who have they played? Northwestern, UCLA. You got to look at who they played. James Madison 2.0 has Curtis Rourke at quarterback. He's priced appropriately. The upside's definitely there if they can move the ball. And that's the reason I think this could be a sneaky game is Indiana is one of the faster teams in college football, and they're at home in Bloomington. So if they can control the pace and move the ball up and down the field and push Nebraska, this game could get, above a 50-point team total pretty quickly. Backfield, it's between Ellison and Lawson. I thought it was Ellison for a while, then Lawton had a game that he was a top dog, like 19 carries or something. So again, I don't hate it with the pricing, but okay, here's an example. If you guys watched the Virginia Tech game on Thursday against Boston College, Bashal Tutin, that's a workhorse running back. That is exactly who we're looking at now. Is it always going to be 250 yards and 4 total touchdowns? Probably not. But the reason he got there is because he had the opportunity. He's a guy who gets 20 carries in a game, and we'll talk about somebody in the next game that kind of fits that description, but I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself because we're still talking about Indiana. But Elijah Surratt's a top dog, pretty cheap for a number one wide receiver at 5,200. All of those guys are going to be involved, though, but Surratt is the top guy. I don't mind this as a game stack. If you want to run with a pass catcher and Raiola and then run it back with Surratt or even Ellison and Lawton, if you're going to get an ownership discount, it's not the worst stack in the world. Again, I think this game could get a little bit sneaky. On to the next $4,700 quarterback. We have UCLA at Rutgers. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I don't like this game because Rutgers has the TTT, the triple time zone travel. Or UCLA has a triple time zone travel. So I don't like them at all. I mean, not that I liked them much beforehand. They lost to the freaking Gophers. The Gophers only played one half of football. But Garbers, he looks okay. For 4,700, I'm not going to tell you no. I just prefer Raiola just because of the matchup. TJ Harden, a shell of himself, hasn't been able to get it going this year. The one thing I will say is that with Rico Flores potentially missing again, J. Michael Sturdivant had 11 targets without Flores last week. So that's something you could look at, especially if you want to run back your Monungai teams. Kyle Monungai, 20 carries a game. Remember Bashal Tutin, the conversation we had just like a minute and a half ago? Yeah, so that's what I'm looking at with Rutgers is Kyle Monungai. The wide receiver room, it's a different guy leading the way every week. Flip a coin. Last week it was Ben Black. The week before that, KJ Duff had a bigger game. It was Ian Strong the week before, Chris Long, with that very demure, very whatever Miller. So it's just tough. The pricing is there. They're too low totals, but I prefer the game stack in the Indiana-Nebraska game just because the pace has potential to get there, I think, a lot better chance than the UCLA Rutgers game. But again, Monungai, You can't argue, especially at 7,200. Come on. South Carolina at Oklahoma, a very close game again, a very possibly good football game again. But, for DFS, where do we want to go with it? On the South Carolina side, Sellers, Sanders, too cheap. That's again, it's a price thing for me. They both have the upside. Sellers needs 18, Sanders needs less than 15 points, and they both definitely have the upside to get there. Sanders averaged 5 yards a carry against Alabama, so the potential is there. And then with Jared Brown out for the year, Gage Larvadain at 3,500, he's been getting the targets. And again, he just needs to fall on the box with a few catches and you're fine. Then the rest of it, Nick Harbor finally had a touchdown, which was good to see. But they got a lot of young talent and, it's potential. It's a price play. You're going to get some low-owned guys here that are very cheap and help you get in a guy like, Cam Ward that we talked about earlier. So, on the Oklahoma side, Michael Hawkins Jr., cheap enough that I don't mind taking a chance. He has the rushing upside. Oh, first, before we get into anything with Oklahoma, I have to give you your weekly out report. So here's the guys on offense that we care about that are out for Oklahoma. Jaden Gibson, Jaleel Farouk, Nick Anderson, Andrew Anthony, and the doubtful guys, Cade McIntyre and Sam Franklin. Notice I didn't say Deion Burks. He's officially questionable on the SEC injury report. Now, when you're watching this, he's probably going to be out. I need to cover my own butt there, but he's questionable. So if Deion Burks plays 6,500, I'm at a point where I don't know if I want to pay up for a wide receiver in this offense, but 6,500 for maybe the best wide receiver transfer in the country. I don't know. It's tough, because we haven't seen him play with Hawkins yet. And Hawkins is more like you play Hawkins for the rushing upside, not for the throwing upside potential to get there. It's going to be a close game. Joe Barnes is leading the way in that backfield. Sawchuk actually got more snaps than Tatum last week, but Tatum was banged up a little bit earlier this year. So I don't look too much into that. Not really looking much at this game though either, other than, these guys are cheap. Alabama at Tennessee, a tale of two teams that have kind of struggled lately. Obviously Bama lost to Vandy, looked bad against South Carolina. Tennessee lost to Arkansas, looked bad against Florida. I shouldn't say look bad. They didn't look great, though. But Jalen Milroe, 10-5. Personally, I'm probably going to try to find the extra money for Cam Moore. But at the same time, if that's going to temper Milroe's or, lower Milroe's ownership a little bit, I don't mind that either because he's basically a running back in this offense that can throw the ball pretty well. So his upside is always going to be there. Again, Justice Haynes, Jam Miller, tough to touch that backfield with the RBBC. If you find the guy that gets, a few more catches and, the touchdown or 2 touchdowns, whatever it is. Jeremy Bernard, still too cheap. I'm talking about him first because his price is 4,100 and that's ridiculous. He had a stellar game last week, crushed, and they lowered his price. I don't get it. But, it makes it a better option for us. Ryan Williams, stud. It's 7,400 is fine. Prentice Law, we're going to have to see what the health of this wide receiver room is. I don't think anybody was on the injury report when I looked last, but the option, it's going to be there. And then on the Tennessee side, we have the potential. Nico Iamaleava has not been great, but have they tried to really unleash him yet? I don't know. It's tough to say. I have a bet on him to win the Heisman I got before the season started because I like the odds that I got, but I kind of doubt. I don't really feel good about that, obviously, but this offense is run through Dylan Sampson. But I think if Nico is going to bust out, that for some reason this feels like the week. Don't ask me why. I just think it kind of needs to be. But again, Dylan Sampson, stud, even at 8,700, the upside is there. And then this wide receiver room, for a minute we thought it was going to be Thornton. For a minute we thought it was going to be Brazel. Brew McCoy still way too cheap. But the guy that kind of sticks out to me this week is Squirrel White. Over the last couple of weeks, he's had 17 targets in 2 games. Again, it's one of those things I just have a gut feel about Squirrel White, and he's priced perfectly for me to go after it. I keep playing this song in my head, the Mississippi Squirrel Revival. I don't know if anybody knows it. It's a day the squirrel went berserk in the first self-righteous church. If you haven't heard it, it's a pretty good tune. Look up the Mississippi Squirrel Revival. I don't know if I need to pay the owner of that song for singing, but you know what? Screw it. Anyway, a good team total. It's just going to be tough to pay out for some of these guys, other than this, Tennessee wide receiver room and Jeremy Bernard. But the potential is there. This is a stackable game if you can make it work price-wise. Notre Dame at Georgia Tech. This game is inside because it's at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Riley Leonard, 8,100. Just plug and play again. Kind of the same situation we were in last week. I don't really care about the opponent at this point. Leonard has hit his groove with Notre Dame. Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price. Love is priced well. Love price. That's pretty good. Anyway, like 5,900, you kind of want to give him a look with this game script, but if Price is going to get double the carries, it's tough. And, last week Coach talked about Price leading up to the game. Like, we have all the confidence in the world, even after the fumble, so on and so forth. So I don't know if I'm going to touch this backfield, but they are on the table. Like, I got to at least consider them. Love still did get more snaps than Price. Price just got the carries. Wide receiver room roulette, just like we've seen. Bo Collins is cheap enough, though. He still kind of seems to be the clear favorite in this wide receiver room. 7 targets again last week, so I don't mind that. Georgia Tech, Haynes King, he left last game, didn't look good. There was some quote earlier that said it was good to see him back at the practice field. Like, the way it was worded was almost like it was just good to see him upright at practice, or like in the flesh, not that he was back at practice. So I don't know. And this line, this line started at 8, it shot up to 12, and now it's back at 9.5. So do with that what you will. I'm not going to try to make any predictions based on how much that's fluctuating. But if we get the Zach Pyron show and Chad Alexander, come on. Frustrated a lot of people last week, I know. But Jamal Haynes is priced fine. It's just not a great game script. And these wide receivers, they're priced where you could still play them regardless, but you're going to like them a lot more if Haynes King is healthy. I don't see it, but, honestly, by the time you're watching this, he might already be ruled out. You can disregard everything I just said then. But, yeah, these wide receivers are definitely more in play with Haynes King. Looking definitely at the Riley Leonard and maybe playing him naked in this game. Michigan at Illinois, got a 4-point spread. Michigan favored, and Jack Tuttle is quarterback. And that's all I have to say about that, because I don't know that Michigan's going to be that much better, because they're still going to run the Michigan offense. I don't know that I'm considering Tuttle. It does boost Loveland and Morgan and these guys in the receiving core a little bit more, you would think, because he will throw the ball more than Alex Orji, as the coach permits. It's still going to be run by Mullings and Edwards. These guys are still going to own the show. Mullings is down at a point where 7,000 is not that bad. Edwards did split with him a lot more against Washington, but I think coming off of a bye week, we could be back to Mullings like a 2/3 to 1/3 sort of thing. And Illinois' run defense doesn't scare me. Outside of Nebraska, teams have been able to run the ball on them. So I'm really looking at the running game for Michigan, if anything. On the Illinois side, it's a little bit more interesting, because Josh McCray is going to be the starting running back in all likelihood, because Caden Fegan is out. We saw McCray last week at something like 16 carries and a couple of catches out of the backfield. And it makes me think back to when the Gophers played Michigan and Darius Taylor had 10 catches and had a blow-up game. Now, it's McCray and Taylor are an apples-to-apples comparison, and just because one running back doesn't have success means they're going to again. But it tells me that the opportunity is there, and McCray can handle the workload. So at 3,800, that's a guy I'm really considering. And this is a stackable passing game too. I don't know how I feel about it. Will Johnson is on the other side, but he can only cover one guy. Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin, last time I checked, are 2 guys. So it's definitely something, you're considering. You're probably going to get it lower owned because of the game script and because of the opponent. But Michigan, their defense is still good, but it's not quite as scary as it used to be. So I don't know that I'm on a full-on game stack of this game, but there's a few pieces that I don't mind. One that I wouldn't mind stacking if the price can work is Colorado at Arizona. Got a big total and a close spread. Colorado, good offense, poor defense. Shadur Sanders, priced appropriately. He's a guy that's probably going to get you 25 to 35, and you're just going to go home happy. If he has a ceiling game, I don't mind it in this game script where it's close and they're projected to lose and might need to throw. I mean, I shouldn't say might need to throw, because Colorado doesn't. They just don't run the ball. In the wide receiver room, Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn, we have Mark. Travis Hunter is listed as active. He's expected to play. Jimmy Horn is weird. The phrasing was more something like, we expect him to participate. So I don't know if there's anything to look into there. But Omarion Miller is out. So it's likely going to be Wester and Horn in the slot, and then Shepard and Hunter out wide. And Shepard at 3,900, he's coming along the last few games. He's not priced for it. He's not priced like Miller's going to be out for this game yet. So this is where we kind of want to catch him before he goes up into that 5,000 to 5,500 range, like his buddy Wester right above him. So I'm loving this wide receiver core. It's just a matter of how you want to mix and match it. And then on the other side, Noah Fafita has been dog poop, but he's cheap. So the thing with Fafita, though, is like he threw for 300 yards last week, but still only scored something like 13.5 DK points. So the upside is there if he can find the box a couple more times. Quali Conley, workhorse back. Got to love it. And I say workhorse. He gets 13 to 15 carries, but he's super, super involved in the pass game. I think he's like third on the team in targets. So, for DFS, the points are going to be there whether he gets 13 carries, 18 carries, because he's probably going to catch the ball a few times. Tet McMillan, very on the fence about him. He is a very good wide receiver. I thought he was a very good wide receiver. He's very skewed this year if you look at his stats because of the one big blow-up game he had earlier in the season. He really has only paid off his price tag 2 or 3 times this year. And a couple of times he's missed bad, even at this 8,300 price tag. I'd actually be more interested in the tight end Kean Burnett. His targets have increased the last few weeks. He gets 6, then 7, then 8, and at 3,800. The flip-flop of 8,300 with McMillan. This is like a Fafita, Kean Burnett stack and run it back with one of these wide receivers, and then you can pay it for Cam Ward. I keep going back to Cam Ward. I don't know why. It's weird. Like he's a good football player or something. But this is a very stackable game, too. Just finding the right pieces from it. Lamonius Craig is on the field. Raymello Murphy from Old Dominion finally saw some action again last game. He only had 2 targets, but he caught both of them. So that's something, maybe monitor. Probably not this week, but something to monitor moving forward. Baylor, Texas Tech, quite possibly my favorite game on the slate for DFS purposes. Sawyer Robertson is one of those guys at 6,800. DK refuses to raise his price, and I don't know why. His floor has been 20 points the last few weeks, and Texas Tech is not, one of those scary defenses that you're concerned about not being able to produce. Lubbock is a tough place to play. I will give it that, and it's a weird, tough place to play. That atmosphere is kind of crazy, but it doesn't scare me in this game environment. 24.5 points with a mobile quarterback. The running back room, probably not something I'm touching. Richard Reese and Dominic Richardson. Reese has missed the last couple games. Richardson missed last week. Reese has been practicing. We still don't know exactly what it's going to be. Bryson Washington will lead the way probably regardless. If it's 4, I'm not interested. If it's 2, maybe I'll take a peek. Hal Presley, though, at near the top of the list for comeback player of the year, had been injured. He's priced at 3,100, and over the last 2 weeks, he has 25 targets. I don't care if he catches half of them. 6 catches a game is exactly that's a third of the way, or 6 catches. It's 2/3 of the way to what you need for a $3,100 price tag. If he finds a touchdown, ceiling. It doesn't even matter how many catches and yards he has. A touchdown is almost a ceiling game without anything else. So Hal Presley's a guy I'm really considering. If you look at the rest of this wide receiver room, you're going to notice a trend. They're all cheap and they all see the field a lot. So picking another one after Presley is a little bit more difficult to do. But this is a game where you could stack Robertson with 2 wide receivers and then run it back with Taj Brooks. And you could be sitting real pretty for the rest of your lineup. There's going to be a lot of room to work with because of how cheap these wide receivers are. And that brings me to Taj Brooks, workhorse. I don't know what I can say. There's only one game this year. He's gotten fewer than 20 carries. So I don't mind that. Baron Morton is priced exactly probably where he should be. His floor, his average is right there around, probably 20 to 25 DK points. It's okay. If he has a ceiling game in this game script, if a couple of his passes are dump offs to Brooks and Brooks takes him to the house. But then, he also has Josh Kelly, who's leading the team in targets this year, the transfer from Wazoo, who's looked really good in this offense. Caleb Douglas had a blow-up game last week, and he's the cheapest of the 3 top dogs. So he's maybe the guy I'm looking at most, 4,000. Again, just doesn't take much for the former Gator to get there. A few catches and 60 yards and a touchdown, and you're looking pretty. And in this game environment, it could be any one of these guys. Jalen Conyers, I just got to mention him because he's a tight end. Oh, same with Michael Trigg. Michael Trigg actually does get a lot of targets, though. So Trigg might be the tight end in this game that you want to go with. But yeah, this is one of my favorite games for DFS purposes, so definitely give it a look. USC and Maryland, 2 of the most confusing teams. A good one to end on. The 2 of the toughest teams to project for DFS in many aspects. One of the easier guys is Woody Marks. Woody Marks has 20 carries in back-to-back games, 100 yards rushing in 4 of the last 5. Frustrating that Joyner had the touchdown last week, but what are you going to do? The thing is it's a 32-point team total, but where do you get that other than Marks? Miller Moss, he's fine. He's fine. It's just what he is. But then pick a wide receiver. I think Kyron Hudson's the one that's looked best the past few weeks. I don't know if that means he's going to be the guy this week. Selfishly, I want it to be Deuce Robinson because I love that dude. I love the way he plays football. I love it, his size and speed and everything. And I think he should be better than he is. And it might be the offense. I don't know. It's roulette at wide receiver. And Maryland, I just don't know what this team is. Billy Edwards, I thought was going to be a lot better. They looked hideous against Northwestern last week. There's a couple of constants. Ty Felton had 19 targets last week. Caden Prather had 13. So the targets are still condensed. I will say Preston Howard came in strong with 7 targets last game. So, you can look at him at dang near min price. He might be a little bit easier pill to swallow because Ty Felton's 8,900. But Billy Edwards they've looked unimpressive. Roman Hemby Romulus is still in that price range where I could consider him. And he's kind of started being a workhorse. He has double the snaps as his counterpart, Nolan Remus. Some of you will understand what I'm doing here. But Colby McDonald has basically disappeared. So Roman Hemby at that price, kind of giving him a look. Ty Felton, the volume's there and the raw points. Prather's priced right. Edwards is priced right. If he could get his rushing upside going, 77 is a lot easier to swallow. And then the other side is Woody Marks. Tough to know what to do with this wide receiver core. But if you stack this game right, you'll probably be pretty unique. But that's it. That's a 12-game slate. If you don't like how not colored this stone is and you want more information, this is what the real stone looks like. This is last week's stone. You can see we have the same thing I just showed you, DK pricing, Vegas spread, team totals, but then we have grades for defense, rushing and passing. How much do teams run and pass? How many plays do they run? What their pace is? We color them. Are they high upside? Are they cash? It's basically just all of the information. Oh, and over on the right, look at rushes per game, targets per game. So you can find those workhorses like Bashal Tootin and Kyle Monangai. It's like, Bill, how do I get a stone like this? It's easy. Just join the nation. We're here. We're ready for you. We have so many different packages that you pick what works best for you. And nothing that's going to break the bank. You don't have to pay $300 a month for your content. You can get all access for 6 months for about the same price as some of our competitors. But the thing is, we want you to pay for your contests, not your content. And it's flexible to how you want to do it. If you want all access, right now is a good time because we have NFL, college football, PGA swing season, MMA is going strong, NHL is getting started up, NBA is right around the corner. Like every single sport, and you can get the optimizer to go with it, or you don't have to because we want it to be flexible for you. We want to cater to your needs as much as possible. If you only want one sport, football is your favorite, just go and click football. It's just the one sport. Oh, actually, you know what? It's 2 sports because football includes NFL and college football. You can do PGA. You can do it with or without the optimizer again. So plenty of options at the nation. And the proof is in the pudding. This is just last week alone, 25,000. Our boy Hamhock up top, he hit it hard last week. Thursday, I believe he hit, and Saturday, 2 slates. Like just a crazy week for college football for him. We have so many flags flying up at the top. We actually had our guy Rio win 100K. That one didn't make this collage because it was this week, not last week, but you'll see that one next week, I promise. So yeah, there's a lot of winning happening at the nation. We have our Discord where we have the community, which is my favorite part of being a part of this, is just the conversations we have, the back and forth. There's humor, there's intentionality, there's real data, insight, a lot of opinions that help us, kind of the icing on top when we're building our lineups and, approaching DFS. So again, join the nation, pay for your contest, not your content, but always remember the most important rule: enjoy the process, enjoy building your lineups, enjoy watching college football, and just be glad that we have the opportunity to do this, and hopefully enjoy watching your lineups climb the leaderboard. And I hope to see you there. Enjoy your weekend, everybody.